I hope this session will empower more women to go forward, start their own businesses, take the executive roles.
Welcome to the Blue Circle. It's such a big privilege and a pleasure to reconnect with everyone, panelists who are handpicked because of the think input and the rich experience that they bring in. And thank you to our distinguished audience for joining us. We've received over 100 registrations, most of whom are CEOs and CXOs, senior leaders from the fraternity. Some of them are also repeat visitors, so which is very encouraging and provides us even higher levels of dialogue through the online modes as well. So for those of you who are new with us today, the Blue Circle is an exclusive community and ecosystem which is curated for business leaders to help them manage disruptive times and become future ready. We focus on four fundamental sectors, which are e-mobility, energy, real estate, and healthcare. We also present socioeconomic insights, which ultimately determine the evolving complexion of the market. In response to the COVID challenge, the Blue Circle has also accentuated its digital presence. One of the many modes we employ is our weekly webinar series and our digital publication. And in addition to this, and you'll be happy to know that we are very soon launching an exclusive digital platform curated for leaders, somewhat like the sector-specific curated LinkedIn for leaders, wherein we will present them with the opportunity of connecting with like-minded leaders as themselves, also house high-quality curated content, meaningful conversations, opportunities, and so on. For those leaders who are interested, please do write to us. We've also begun our selective outreach and have 2,500 plus senior leaders who've already joined us in the last 3 months. And today we're kickstarting our Women's Leadership Week with 3 super achievers for our e-mobility circle. To begin with, driving any vehicle, even riding the humble bicycle, was a province of men alone. However, today aeroplanes and even spacecrafts are being manned by women. To celebrate such leadership in true egalitarian spirit, the Blue Circle brings you specially curated panels to discuss the achievements of women in the e-mobility space, the challenges faced by them, and the way forward so that their ilk and the industry marches ahead to provide a more economical, efficient, and cleaner way to move forward. We're privileged to have thought leaders amidst us. I will just briefly mention their names and designations in the best interest of time. We have with us Ms. Prerana Chaturvedi, Director and CEO, EVOLET India. We have with us Ms. Monika Zarafu, Founder and Managing Director, BYKKO Smart Bikes. Ms. Monika Mikac, CBO, QEV Technologies. And the chair and moderator for the session is Mr. Pavan Choudary, best-selling author, public intellectual, CEO of French multinational, and sits on several boards across the country. Thank you very much, sirs and ma'am, for being a part of the session today. And now I request Mr. Choudary to please begin and chair the session, sir.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. And it is great you began with the bicycle. The bicycle has a history which tells us how much the woman was oppressed earlier. So when the bicycle came, women were not allowed to ride the bicycle. The reasons given were it can lead to dysentery, it can lead to sexual arousal, etc. The other reasons, social reasons which were given were that how will she embark on the bicycle? It will be visually offensive for her. She was not even allowed to wear trousers. In fact, the bicycle, many anthropologists say, they brought in the trouser for the woman and freed her up. So she also became socially mobile. She became physically more agile because she got another venue to exercise. That is where she started from. And where she is today is reflected by the panel which we have of super achievers in this space. And I will ask each one of them to tell you exactly what she does and the scale and scope of her work. Let me start with Prerana, then come to Monika Zarafu, and then come to Monika Mikac. Prerana.
Many thanks, Pavanji, for such a kind introduction, and my honor and privilege to share this podium with such powerful women, and of course you. And also many thanks to the entire Blue Circle team, because I see that they have worked so hard to put this together for us, that we are able to share our experiences and also learn from our, not only the fellow panelists, but also from the entire community that shares the same kind of experience. I'm veteran squadron leader Prerana Chaturvedi. I'm a re-attired military aviator. I've had a long stint with the Indian Air Force as a helicopter pilot. And I exactly reckon with Pavan when he says that there were such lame excuses which were seeded in the minds of people as to why she would not be able to do it, especially when it came to fighter flying. I reckon some instances wherein people said that, oh, you need some bit of a torso to be able to put that 7G, not realizing that you're not driving an ox cart or a bullock cart. No, you really don't need that bicep to be able to do it, but the only strength that you needed was in your mind to be able to believe that you can do it, and to be able to get that opportunity to be able to convince yourself that yes you can, and to convince the others that yes I can. And that was the little piece which was missing in the believe not only in yourselves, because you never had the exposure, because you never had the freedom to dream, but also the missing piece was the trust in the other half of the picture, the entire men community, who really weren't sure, or and were not really convinced, why should I take that risk, isn't everything going fine otherwise? Why would you really want to start something new? But when we entered, as and I'm talking about what the Indian environment was, we were the front runners in opening the entry of women into the armed forces. People didn't believe, we had to prove ourselves 400% in order to reach 100%. And from there started the entire journey of my career and interesting lifespans, wherein I found myself as the only woman, or amongst the few and very few women who were present in the domain with whatever else that I was doing, majorly into the field of aerospace and defense. And then we realized as the years went by that there were so many other women who were functioning in a different vertical, one or the other vertical, as we kept on doing air shows all across the world, into Paris, Berlin, and interacted with women in the uniform in other countries. And we realized that it's not just, the sentiment was not just limited to India or the Asian subcontinent. The sentiment was global. And every woman in that subcontinent, in that role, wearing that uniform, performing anything else, maybe not just flying, had the same kind of experience. So the thread was really, really common. And whatever people were trying to do about it was, again, just common. It's just that all of us were rising at about the same time all across the world. That is where we all see where we are today together. And that is what is most important, that the wave has to just go on. And you get there finally when everybody is trying to do the same thing together. This is exactly how we chanced upon what we are doing in the field of e-mobility. I am the CEO of EVOLET, and we are another brigade of game changers, as we may call it, just because of the fact that electric mobility is seen as sufficiently disruptive in nature when it is viewed in the perspective of the entire automobile sector. And with our team, the way we have taken the baton forward, we are a startup, just less than 2 years old, and we are present pan-India and being led by women across all quarters. And of course, as my entire plant operation sees it, We will have women in the pink line in manufacturing too very, very soon. So looking forward to a lot more of lessons coming from fellow panelists. This is where we are.
Very good. And you have a capacity in Bilaspur, Haryana, which is capable of rolling out 1,100 vehicles, scooters and motorcycles per day.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, we installed a capacity wherein we would be able to look after the pan-India need of circulation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that biceps are not required so much. Machines freed women from the monopoly which man had over because of his biceps. And in the beginning, I remember on the cycle piece, women were given reluctantly cycles which had both the pedals on the same side. And they were asked to ride it with both the legs on the same side. So naturally, she had to perform 400% to achieve
To achieve that
100%. It
100%.
was very, very difficult for them. And now let me come to Monika Zarafu and ask her to tell us what exactly is the scale and scope of what she has done in the e-mobility space. Monika.
Hi, Pavan. Thanks so much. First of all, thanks for your invitation. I am humbled and honored to be today here. Happy International Women's Days to fellow panelists and also our listeners. I hope we have many women in the audience. I am here probably more to learn than to teach any lessons from my experience. I was involved in the transportation field all my career. I started as a transport engineer with a degree from the Polytechnic Institute in Bucharest, Romania. An interesting side story is I grew up under communism, and I got my degree after communism in a totally new society run by different business rules, and it was really challenging. Many years later, my family and we emigrated to Australia. We started from zero, pretty much my career, although I had more than 15 years international experience in freight, forwarding and transport. And I went back to school in Australia. I did a Master by Research at University of Technology, Sydney. My research was focused around personal rapid transit systems, automated transit systems. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship from CSIRO, the leading research agency in Australia, studying climate change mitigation actions from a transport perspective. And this is when I became acutely aware of the need to start changing the trend from, personal car use to more mass transit, electric vehicles, and active travel. So in 2015, I started my own company, BYKKO, specialized in bike sharing, where I saw a gap in the market in Australia. But also I wanted to create a more woman-friendly transport environment. And this is why in 2016, I switched to electric bikes. So now today, BYKKO, it's a fully integrated e-mobility platform. We support all e-mobility vehicles, while we also have experience in planning and design, operations, and data management. I champion for sustainable transport in all forms and shapes, from public transport, electric vehicles, and especially micro-mobility, which is my field, because I really believe that this is the way forward to have more sustainable and livable cities and communities.
Great. So your case reminds me of Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand also grew up in communism, and then migrated to the West and became one of the greatest exponents of enlightened capitalism. So I hope your trajectory also follows a similar path and you also reach those levels of glory, Monika. Now
It's a
let me
very
get,
interesting journey, trust me.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So now let me come to Monika Mikac. Monika Mikac brings also superb achievement, and I would like to you all to listen to what she has done in this e-mobility space. Monika.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for invitation. And I hope this session will empower more women to go forward, start their own businesses, take the executive roles. My journey in electric mobility segment started a little bit more than 10 years ago. I started as Chief Operations Officer of Croatian company Rimac Automobili. Back then, we were really a small startup company in the automotive world, and we were trying to create the world's most powerful electric supercar. We struggled, of course, with many different obstacles, and nobody believed that actually a company from Croatia could create the world's most powerful electric supercar. At the end, we did it. And at the moment when I was leaving the company in 2018, company was already around 400 people. Of course, companies today still successful, around 900 people and growing. I decided for a change in my career, and in 2018, I joined the Spanish company from Barcelona, QEV Technologies. And QEV Technologies actually has three different pillars of work. One of them being electric racing, where we are quite active in different series like Formula E, Extreme E. Then we decided that, racing is a platform where we develop new technologies. And these technologies could be used in many different forms of transportation. So we actually have many different projects in the automotive sector with companies like Bike, BGV, SEAT, some smaller startup companies where we can offer from the first design until the finished product, all of the development of the vehicle in-house. And at one moment we realized that, we really want to change the world. We really want to impact the mobility, and we want to have a more mass market impact with our technology. And that's how we started a project in Philippines, where we actually at the beginning converted their local minibuses to electric. So we created electric kit for conversion of those minibuses. At the end, the business developed that we were able to develop not only kits, but also platforms for those manufacturers to build body and interiors on top. And we noticed that similar business model could be applied to many other emerging countries. So we also started business in Peru, in Mexico, and we are actually spreading in many different countries, discussing in Africa, in other countries in Latin America, in Asia. And this is where we see the highest potential for growth of our company.
Great. So earlier, Croatia was only known for its Game of Thrones. Now you are also making some thrones for women in the automobile sector.
Exactly.
And you occupy. Great. So,
Wow.
so I would like to ask Monika Mikac, what were the challenges you faced in the e-mobility sector as a woman? What were those challenges which you faced? Monika Mikac?
Sorry, it freezed a little bit. So the challenges, I never considered, when I entered the automotive sector, I never considered that there are any obstacles because I'm a woman. But it occurred sometimes that things were happening. So we had, for example, exhibitions, and clients would approach and they would ask to speak with a boss because they thought I'm a hostess. So I would usually say, yes, you can speak to boss. Of course, and when you show the knowledge, when you show that you know about the technology, you know about the product, you know about the market, you know about everything, then things change. But I think that was like funny for me, but if we consider, it shouldn't be funny, because why women are only there to be hostesses? They can be leaders.
And in terms of financing,
so this is maybe not a challenge. This is maybe not a challenge connected to being a woman. I would say that this challenge was maybe a mixture of being a woman, but also being in Croatia back in 2010, when electric mobility was just starting. So it was a mixture of everything. And actually, for some reason, I always had this role of raising money for the companies where I'm working. It was the same for Remake. It was the same now in QEV Technologies. And for me, it's always a challenge to raise the money for the company. Market today changed, but now I had a challenge of COVID and all of that situation where investors were a little bit put away, and they were like, okay, let's see what is future going to bring us, and we don't want to invest right now. So definitely one of the biggest challenges of my career is financing.
Very good point, because women only get 2% of the venture capital finance in the world. But you still did a great job, because you got 10 million euros in your first round for Rimac Automobili. And in the second round, you got 30 million euros.
And there was additionally 10 million euros from the European funds. And now in QEV Technologies, we were able to close 17 million euros financing with European Investment Bank. So although I struggle, I could say I'm successful.
Superb, superb. And it was a double prejudice. So you were a woman, and the second thing was a woman from a country which is not known for automobiles like Croatia. So it was a double prejudice you worked against. Great job, Monika Monats. Let me come to Monika Zarafu now and ask her why this space of e-bikes interested you. Are these e-bikes also the preferred mode for women because of her gender? What are those reasons, and what have been the challenges which you have faced as a woman in this sector? Monika.
So generally speaking, women participation rates in cycling is very low globally. In Australia, it's even lower. We are talking about 20% participation rate, which is incredibly low. However, when I tried at a show in Paris a couple of years ago an electric bike, I thought that I personally found the solution, because I found the bike to be so easy to ride while still doing some exercise. And I thought, okay, if it's good for me, it must be good for other women. And then I started looking at research, and it's more and more evidence now that electric bikes are very appealing to women because one, it's this perceived safety feeling on the road. With an electric bike, you can keep a constant speed, so you build more self-confidence. Then you don't get sweaty to your meetings, which is a great point for men too, because no one wants to go to a meeting, all sweaty and messy. But for women, we not particularly me, but if you ask my daughter, she would spend 1 hour with her makeup. she definitely doesn't have the time before get to work to redo all the makeup and change the clothes, shower. It's something natural. Second, another good point is shopping. You can do shopping on an electric bike, or especially on a cargo bike. You can carry kids. Look at examples from Europe, from Amsterdam. They drop off kids at schools in cargo bikes. But what is even more important is it's more and more research about the health benefits of electric bikes for both men and women, because electric bikes encourage users to ride more often, almost twice as often and twice as long distances. So the health benefits are similar to a push bike, despite general perception that electric bike is cheating and you don't get that kind of benefits from physical activity, which is not true. It's research shows, and especially for women, and we have this is not only research, is based on our experience. Riding an electric bike when you have some health issues is really good, because the pressure on your knees and joints, it's much lower than walking or running, jogging. We discuss about jogging at 4 a.m. So this is why we have users with our bike share programs where doctors recommended riding an electric bike to recover from an injury. So it's fantastic. What I found challenging, there were two things. One, I am an engineer, sorry, so I have to use statistics. Women make up only half of the half force in general in all industries. But in automotive industry, we go down to one quarter in auto manufacturing sector. If we talk about e-mobility, the transportation workforce, we go down to 20%. Only 3% of women are in leading positions, in CEO positions. This means, one, you don't have mentors, which I found quite challenging. We all look for role models in our career, we need more women in leading roles. There are way too, the number is too low. The gender and diversity, it's an issue in all industry, but in transport is critical. And another thing why I think it's challenging is because if you don't have these women with their expertise and creativity and to create products for women, then you don't address a really big market opportunity, the woman market. In bike sharing, in our case, we are pretty happy that we confirmed that with electric bike sharing, we have an almost equal gender distribution. We have around 48% women compared to 52 men, which is quite high. But again, when you look overall over the industry, there are very, very few women in these leading roles. And yes, I agree with Monika. She with the financing, we all know that early stage funded companies led by women raised very little capital. BYKKO didn't went to market to raise capital. We are bootstrapped, but this year we are going to do so. We will see what the challenges will be on this sector.
Good luck, Monika.
Thank you.
Fascinating, you have really outlined how technology is the big equalizer. It makes biking safer for women. It makes them arrive in a more presentable state to wherever they are going. It allows them to transport their children better. And you also said that though it might be more macho to ride a bike which is non-electric, but actually you end up riding much more, bicycling much more if you have an electric bike. Wow. and also you have begun to tell what are the challenges which women face in the e-mobility sector, where as it is their number is low, and the financing piece also is loaded, the dice is loaded against them. Prerana, uh, you've already battled men at their strongest fort in the armed forces and come a winner. But what are the challenges which you remember facing in the e-mobility sector, which came basically because of your gender? Prerana.
I really cannot feel that we have faced any challenge because of the gender. It would be gross unjust thing if I said if I faced any challenge. Possibly two reasons. That one, of course, we've already gone through the grind 30 years back. So if at all there was anything here, I would have found it insignificant, practically non-existential compared to what we had seen. Number two, when we were entering the military aviation, we were consciously aware of the fact that you were sort of tearing through a male bastion, and you were consciously aware that um, you have to look at not only your perceptions, but you also have to manage everybody else's perceptions and also that of the entire world. Here, perhaps that we were not conscious of the gender. We just did not feel no kind of resistance nor any differential behavior. So, and also for a fact that it's been 25 to 30 years since we began. So e-mobility being just yet another industrial domain, and I can see women all across in various positions. But like Monika rightly said, I did not realize the scantiness of women in the leading positions until a fortnight back when we started talking about this event today. I'm being very honest about this. Because we never started to look at that kind of statistics. We were too busy doing whatever we were doing in carving a niche. And then the fact remains that we took the entire segment of e-mobility as the one, like I said, apparently disruptive in nature, wherein we had to do a lot of hard work to build the industry, to create a space for the entire industry. And we just didn't have the time to think about whether I'm the CXO as a woman or I'm the CXO as a man, or what does the team look like? And even the idea, now it's most surprising. We did want to set up a pink line in the plant, but the idea did not come from me. The idea came from my plant head, Mr. Naveen Agarwal. He just came up and said one day, why not, let's set up a pink line, and we should do it, because that amounts for a generative, and the fact that you are there yourself, there would be less hesitation. I said, yeah, of course, why not, let's do that. And we started working towards it. And just just naturally, so that when we started looking at finance or HR or marketing, when we had Swaranjali looking at IT, we had Aarti looking at our marketing effort, and everything started to come together. And it's only one day we realized, oh wow, we are so many women around here. But at the same time, we perhaps in this segment, the kind of people we are all associated together, especially at EVOLET, everybody's perceptions are gender neutral. Hence, we did not feel otherwise, unless again, like about this episode, unless again, couple of months before, when we were doing a marketing exercise, and when you have to choose how would you appropriate your budget. In one of those review meetings, the marketing team said that if I were to choose a TG, where do I fire at? So if I'm looking at 18 years to 45 years, am I looking at men or women? So of course, some of my product segment, I may want to believe that I may need to fire at women because they are going to be my users. The marketing review and the data segment said that it's the man in the house which is going to make a decision. So you got to please address them, despite the fact that the product remains women centric. So again, there could be a debate in that segment wherein they said women may not be decision makers, but they definitely would have a very, very high impact when I look at a consumer segment. But when I look at the professional segment, who's pitching it and who's selling it, like in the terms of sales and the marketing, women have done a fantastic job to communicate and to build the connect from the product to the user. I see all across the segments, it is all women because they have been excellent in communicating and they are the ones who are able to influence a decision. Of course, I firmly believe, Monica, when you said that when it comes to leadership positions, the ball game is entirely different, and not only in the e-mobility segment, also across all segments. Perhaps for two reasons. When you look at e-mobility, you're not looking at a one particular kind of skill set which you had to choose when you were at college. You know, when you have to lead a domain, you have to learn some aspect. At least if there are 10 verticals, you have to be a major in at least 2 of them. Perhaps that option was not open 20 years back for someone to be able to chance or to be able to get that opportunity to choose an academic qualification, which might have condensed into a leadership position as of today. Number two, in order to be able to be in this leadership position, you not only have to be academically qualified, you also have to be a hustler. You also need to be street smart. You also need to be able to juggle between a couple of verticals. And that makes a very, very different kind of an individual to be able to battle all the fronts at the same time. So if you were looking at women who are going to be heading either of these verticals in any of these domains, especially that of an e-mobility, wherein you're not only battling your own segment, you're also battling a conventional automobile segment. You're trying to present your e-mobility in a way that you do not come across as a competitor, but as a collaborator. And in that part, to play that role, I feel women are the most appropriate weapon to use.
Absolutely. So fantastic points you brought in. And I must admit that you are a mountaineer who has climbed Mount Everest. So small hills are not big challenge for you. And second thing, second thing is you also mentioned that the kind of people you gather, the kind of people a big mountaineer gathers will also come infused with the same spirit of
Yes.
gender not disadvantaging us in any manner. However, research does say that unflexible timings is one of the points in this sector because it moves on assembly line manufacturing, which sometimes disadvantage a woman who's also raising kids. You also brought in a point about academic qualification, and I was reminded of John Stuart Mill. He said that you often accuse, he was one of the greatest proponents of women's liberation. He says, you accuse that no woman is a great historian, but how many women you have allowed to study in erudite history universities?
Wow.
You say that no woman is a linguist, but how many women you have allowed to study Slavic and Sanskrit?
True.
So that is a very important point. And the hustler piece also is extremely, extremely important, because for the same things which men get a lot of praise and admiration from the corporate sector of assertion,
Of being
leadership,
a hustler
etc.
and leader.
For that, the woman often gets pilloried for the
True.
same traits. So, but great points, Prerana, and I would like to now go back to Monika Mikac and take that thread which you started with, Prerana, that what are the unique points of women which distinguish her for a leadership position in e-mobility and give her some unique advantages? Monika Mikac.
I would definitely point out that women are more patient. and probably a better listeners. And in that regards, you know, I think they are more calm to polish some situation where maybe men would reacted more impulsively and wanted to sort it out immediately, while we realize that sometimes, okay, you need to let it calm down, and you need to be patient for things to develop on their own. So I think those are like the biggest advantages. And I would definitely like to point out that what I think is important for a lot of ladies, that I think they are lacking sometimes, they're not so prone to risk. And a lot of researchers actually showed that why are women have lower salaries than men? Why they don't have higher positions? Because they don't okay, they don't hustle, let's call it that way. They're not knocking on the doors of their bosses and saying like, look, I want to discuss my salaries. I know I was in a position where I actually discussed with my employees about the salaries. And honestly, so we had women and men employed in the company, and honestly, it was like 90% of men coming and asking for a better salary, while women were always holding back a little bit. And they were just waiting, you know, okay, for that you come and acknowledge their work and maybe offer a better
Yeah.
position. So from, let's say, 10 women, maybe one would come and ask for a better salary. But from
Sure.
10 men, I would have like 8 of them coming in asking for better salary. And it didn't matter if they really, you know, from those 8, maybe 4 were that really performed and were really good. And other 4, in my opinion, maybe didn't deserve it. So I think this is one of the differences that I noticed in general. And I think this is something that women have to change in their perception, and they have to be bold. They have to take risks.
Excellent point. So you have said that women do not take risks, and research also shows that one of the best place to negotiate the salary is at the interview stage only, as you are entering the company. Then also women do not negotiate so much, as well as they do not embellish their strengths that much. And on a lighter note, if only if 8 out of 10 men were coming, and hardly any women were coming to ask for a salary, we should also explore as researchers that were women better at asking for their salary, their husbands to ask for salaries? Were they urging their husbands to ask for salaries? Was that something easier for them? But you're very right about this. Um, Regarding to the patient piece, the patient, yes, absolutely, they are more patient. And the other point which you have brought in is even better. They do not react. I mean, a man, let me say, the level of reactivity which a man has of any untoward comment also, he wants to settle it right there and then. And they say that one of the great things or wisdoms of life is knowing what to ignore. And perhaps women have suffered so much innuendo, so much remarks, etc., as they were growing. They know that certain things have to be ignored, and this is a very highly evolved managerial trait for which women should get their due. Great point, Monika. Mikac, let me come to Monika Zarafu. Monika, what do you think are the unique traits of women which make her specially suited for leadership positions in e-mobility? Monika.
Look, again, going back to research, because it's hard to, you know, to generalize based on our experience. Usually, you know, when you invite or listen to women, they are already, you know, on an accomplished position, but there are so many other women there, their voice is not heard. So, but research points that female-led or co-founded startups have lower failure rates, produce more capital efficient companies, and achieve high venture level returns. Now, I don't necessarily think that there are different characteristics as leaders between women and men, and I don't necessarily agree that women are not risk takers. I think they are risk takers, but it's a calculated risk on a long-term strategy. What I think, and I agree with Monika, women tend to underestimate themselves. So they, and this is the main reason they don't step up and they wait until they make a decision. But think about, they are majority families, they are the caretaker of the family. So as well as they take care of the family, they could take care of the business with no issues. Special characteristics, again, I come back to my point that we, in position to help other women, we have a moral obligation to bring more women in these leading positions, and any board should have equal women members, because after all, it's also about marketing. It's about your product. You need, you know, we basically build solutions that solve our own problems. This is basic in any business. We solve our problems, but if we don't have women in decision-taking position, then we won't have services and products designed for women. You know, we need to take care of health for both women and men, but again, it's a very imbalanced equilibrium. It's not an equilibrium actually in the industry. We need equal rights, like we need maternity leave and paternity leave, because this means actually women can go back to work and the father can take care of the kids, and it's perfectly fine. But we came from a generation where this wasn't an option. You had to struggle. Today we have these options. Today the companies, we have this amazing technology. We can create flexible workplaces and take care of women needs and requirements. And I want to give you an example which shocked me. Maybe you know, but I didn't know until recently, that until a few years ago, automotive industry didn't use crash dummies based on woman body. We have a different bone structure. We have different ligaments, different structure. Prerana can say, I don't know about uniforms in the army, but I know for sure in the police force, they don't have uniforms designed for woman body. And this creates discomfort in you know, doing your job. I know from my daughter, which is a doctor, the instruments are not designed for woman hands. These are physical characteristics which are distinctive between women and men, not necessarily, you know, character traits, which I think I am absolutely sure both women and men have the same characteristics. It's more about, you know, caring for the physical differences between a woman body and needs and a man body and needs. This is why it's so critical to increase the number of women in the workforce and in the leading roles in the industry. Because after all, transportation, it's essential. Mobility, it's, you know, what we do since we start the day, we start thinking, okay, what is my journey today? What do I have to do to, you know, to fulfill my obligations? So it's such a critical industry. It's so important to encourage more women to be part of this industry.
Excellent points. So you are saying that people may say that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, but you are saying the difference is like more between not so much as Mars and Venus, but Mars and Snickers. Both are chocolate bars. Okay. So,
Because even men are
uh,
different. Come on, not
yeah.
everyone is the macho type and risk taker at all cost type. We are different.
I would wait for Monika Mikac also to come back on that because I'm so happy that all the women are bringing in their own research perspectives, which is also shattering a myopic stereotype that women are more touchy-feely. No, you have seen Monika Zarafu is quoting research after research. I'm sure Monika Mikac also would have something around that. And the other point which she said is that you should have greater participation. Society should have greater participation of women. Till women did not have the voting right,
No.
it was said that her finger is more for the wedding ring. She is not ready for the toxic fumes of politics. And if you will give her voting rights, then families will break because there will be cross voting. Divorce rate will go up. Nothing like that has happened. So there might be a lot of logic against greater participation for women, but it also may be spurious, even though it is coming from the economic sector. So this is something which we have to really look at. And because woman is such an important user of automobiles, and she is so keen on her entire family's welfare also, she should be, her concern should be kept in the design piece too. Coming to Prerana, what do you think? Are there any things in your view which specially distinguish women for leadership positions, particularly in e-mobility? Prerana.
I don't think one would need a specific distinction when it comes to gender. Like we mentioned earlier, it is not the basic qualification. It is not just the academic qualification, but it's the ability to be able to believe, but it's the ability to be able to dream and believe in it. There are two very, very distinctive factors. And it is not that somebody is not allowing you to dream. But before we chance on the right to, let's say, ask for concessions, I think we have already crossed the stage wherein somebody was limiting you to learn, wherein somebody was limiting you to dream. But now that we do not have those kind of limitations, we have to move forward now. We have to move forward from the habit of asking for concessions. We have to move forward in taking accountability for our own actions, to have to be responsible in the role that you are assigned. You have to get up and seize the opportunity. Now nobody is stopping no one. We're past that stage. We talked about it half an hour back. What was 30 years back? What it sounded like. So now, if you do not have a limitation on being able to dream, if you do not have a limitation on being able to pursue your dreams and believe in your dreams, I don't think there should be anything stopping. But what definitely stops is what Monika rightly addressed, is the way we perceive things, is the way we are wired. Now I'm saying there would be a certain chance wherein in order to be able to climb up the ladder, you would have to make priorities and you would have to make selections between what you want in life. However easy it may sound for a man to make those choices, it is really not. Men also miss being with their families and kids, just like women do. Arguably so, maybe women would miss it more, but that's not going to last a lifetime. That's just a phase of your life, and that is when the entire career's transition takes place. So perhaps if I could have been there in a position maybe 10 years earlier, I could possibly get there 10 years later. But that's just those personal choices we make in our lifetime. And it is not going to be industry specific. It's just going to be person specific. And it's just the kind of society we raise. You and I, aren't both of us looking at the same perspective of the industry, regardless of the fact that you're a man and I'm not? So I think not in every point should this question be weighed on the same scale of agenda, but also on the scales of what personal choices do we make to believe and to chase our dreams. Simple. But yes, eventually the point remains the fact that when she makes a decision, it's a tougher decision. In majority of the cases, then what a man has to make a decision. Possibly because we have all been raised in a social environment wherein we place higher accountability on women in social forums, in family settings. And we tend to do that even in work settings without acknowledging it. That's where the only difference is. The day we start to acknowledge it, regardless of being a man or a woman, the day I acknowledge, everything is just the same. The only one thing which I feel is going to be phenomenal in changing how others perceive me, the most important thing is how I perceive myself to be. So if I do not have that barrier in my mind, who am I? I don't think I would let anybody else see it that way.
Yeah, very good, excellent. So if Monika Mikac has a point to make, I invite her to make a point, and then I will close this extremely interesting discussion. Monika.
I would like to point out a few things that I think are really important for women around there. So even if you, like we are talking now about those personal choices that we make in career. So I recently become a mom, and I had to learn how to balance, my private life and my business life. And I was a bit afraid before I become mom. How am I going to do that? Because you want to be a good mom, and what is a good mom? Do you need to spend all of your time with the baby? How to balance all of that? And as Prerana said, so those should be personal choices. And even what I think is really important for women over there that maybe don't have kids and they're afraid, how are they going to do it? So even if you decide to take a break for a year, the world will not stop. And you have a long time to go to fulfill your career and be a good mother and have a job that you wish in the end, or start your own company or start something else. So I think that this is really important for women out there, not to be afraid, because we can do it. We can balance. And it's just important to make choices that you feel comfortable with.
Excellent point.
I totally agree. If you would allow me to intervene, Pavan, just for that, she's so rightly said that if I decide to stop, the world won't stop for me. And this is one more factor, Monika, wherein I felt that makes us much stronger, because we are able to take that executive decision. This is where I choose to stop, and when I come back, I will put my 300% force back with vengeance. And that's when she becomes unstoppable. I think this is where, if you would see women who've come back after a pause, they're unstoppable, completely unstoppable.
Oh, absolutely. I think a very interesting discussion. Anthropological studies have shown that when women also have brute power, then they also start using physical power like man uses, power of coercion.
True.
Having said that, I still feel I go with all of you who have said that there is surely some difference. Not maybe Mars and Venus difference, but Mars and Snicker difference, maybe more than Mars and Snicker difference. Because
I like that one.
I really like that, Pavan. If you do not have a copyright to that, I would like to copy it very soon.
No, please copy. I don't have a copyright to that. I just thought of it. So I was thinking that I was reminded of the biblical biblical evolution, that God made the world. I speak in a secular sense, I'm just relating this mythology. God made the world in 6 days. And he started making rougher and more crude objects in the beginning, stones, insects, animals, birds, and then he came to man. But with man also he was not satisfied. So he pulled a bone from his rib and created a woman. That means somewhere woman is a more refined person, refined entity in certain regard, surely. And this woman, I would say it is more representative of some trait which is called, let me say, for want of a better word, feminine polarity. This feminine polarity may be there in man also. An evolved man should have feminine polarity. Then he will see the world in a more comprehensive and complete manner, and perhaps the sights, the vision for the woman as well as the man would be similar. Having said that, the whole world is not like that, which is why woman has to face still several stereotypes are still to be broken, which women like you on our panel, Prerana, Monika and Monika, you have broken, but the median woman still faces. And let us hope that the cases and examples like yours make it more possible for her. You lay the path in which many more can walk. So on that note, let me now go back to Siddharth and let him close the discussion. Thank you very much. It was really nice interacting with you. And I was also happy to see that almost everybody who joined stayed back with us, even though we have exceeded the time limit by a few minutes. Siddharth. Siddharth, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So thank you very much, ma'am and sirs. Such a wonderful discussion. Our leaders and I have taken home excellent nuggets from today's conversation. And how well moderated, sir. I'm still receiving messages from our leaders on LinkedIn and over email. And thank you to our members and guests for joining us today and staying on till the end. Along with our webinar series, we will soon be taking these discussions on our exclusive platform, which is curated for leaders. We've also been sending out invitations to select leaders across our 4 sectors. So if you wish to engage with us on our panel and as learners, please do connect with us for membership to join our e-mobility circle and also get access to the other allied circles which we're in. So thank you very much, ma'ams and sir, and to our audience, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Many thanks, Siddharth. Many thanks, Pavan, Monika, and
Thanks,
Monika.
everybody.
A real pleasure to be on board. Have a great day.
Pleasure to meet you all.
Happy Women's Day.
A very happy Women's Day to everyone. Bye.